I was 25 at the time, working night shifts at the Walmart off 81st and Memorial in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It wasn't the most exciting job, but it paid better than my last one at the gas station, and the people there were chill for the most part. I worked behind the customer service desk, mainly handling returns and complaints, and I'd gotten used to the steady rhythm of things. Back then, my life was pretty quiet. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just 15 minutes from the store. No pets, no boyfriend, and not much of a social life beyond the occasional weekend hangout. My shifts usually ended at 11 p.m., and the last hour was always the slowest. That's when the store would go mostly silent, except for the soft hum of the lights and the occasional squeaky cartwheel echoing in the distance. It was during one of those last-hour lulls, sometime in late October, when I noticed the old man for the first time. He was standing near the adult diapers section, just kind of staring. I thought maybe he was confused or needed help, so I made a mental note to check on him once I finished scanning a return. But when I looked up again, he was gone. I didn't think much of it. People wander around all the time. But over the next few nights, I started seeing him more often. Always around 10:30. Always in the same general area. He wore this beige windbreaker that looked way too thin for the cold and had a sort of old-school flat cap, like something from a black and white movie. He never had a cart, never picked up anything, and never once came to my counter. At first, I thought he might just be lonely. We get a lot of elderly folks who come in just to walk around or talk to someone, but something about him started to feel off. I tried asking a few coworkers if they'd noticed the same guy. Lisa, one of the greeters, said she didn't remember anyone like that coming in during her shifts. Even Marcus from security, who always kept an eye on the cameras, said the only thing he'd seen was some blurry movement in aisle 12, but nothing he could clearly make out. That's when I started to get this weird pit in my stomach, like I was either going crazy or noticing something no one else could. A few nights later, I came in to start my shift and found a box of adult wipes and compression socks just sitting on the customer service desk. No receipt, no return slip. Just a sticky note that said, "For her, please help." I thought maybe someone dropped it off by mistake, but none of the team remembered seeing anyone leave it there. What creeped me out the most was the handwriting. It was shaky and uneven, like someone who hadn't written anything in years. I threw it out, thinking maybe it was a prank. But the next night, there was another item waiting for me. This time, it was a bottle of arthritis cream with a note that said, "She needs this. I can't find her." At that point, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started checking the security footage myself, even though I wasn't really supposed to. I had Marcus pull up the feed from the customer service desk overnight, and sure enough, around 10:40 p.m., you could see the items just appear on the counter, not someone placing them. Just one frame they weren't there, next frame they were. No figure, no shadow, just this strange flicker of static right before each item popped into view. Marcus looked freaked out too, but tried to brush it off with a nervous laugh, like maybe it was a glitch. But I could tell he didn't believe that either. I started coming in early just to walk the aisles before my shift, hoping to catch the man again. One night, I turned down aisle 12 and he was there, standing perfectly still, his back to me. I stopped. My first instinct was to speak, to ask if he needed anything, but something about the way he stood, so rigid, like he wasn't really there, made the words catch in my throat. When I finally stepped forward, he turned his head just slightly. His skin looked waxy in the fluorescent light, too smooth, almost like old leather stretched thin. And his eyes. I swear they didn't reflect the light like normal eyes do. It was like they absorbed it. I blinked, and in that blink, he was gone. No footsteps, no shuffling. Just gone. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to rationalize it. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe the lights played tricks on me. But then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. 2 weeks earlier, I'd seen a missing persons flyer posted near the break room. I dug it out of the trash at work the next morning. The face was older in the photo, the smile more alive, but it was him. His name was Robert Dean. Went missing in 2013 after walking into that same Walmart to buy vitamins for his wife. They never found him. No car, no security footage, no trace. Just vanished between aisles, like the floor swallowed him whole. I brought the flyer to Lisa and asked if she remembered it. She shrugged and said, "Oh yeah, I think someone reposted that last month for an anniversary thing." I told her I'd seen him, that he was still here. She laughed like I was joking. But after that, the energy at work felt heavier, like I was being watched even in the stockroom. I'd find carts parked in weird spots I knew I hadn't placed. Old coupons would show up on my counter for products we hadn't sold in years. Once, the register printed a blank receipt, with just the words, "She's not here anymore," in place of a barcode. At that point, I was genuinely scared to go to work. But I didn't want to tell my manager. What would I even say? "Hey, I think a ghost is haunting the returns desk?" I kept it to myself and started writing things down in a notebook. Dates, times, what items appeared, what notes were left. Every night around the same time, something would show up, and always something related to elderly care. A pill organizer, a box of incontinence pads, a faded black and white photo of a woman in a hospital bed, eyes closed. That one hit me the hardest because I swear I recognized the background of the picture. It looked like the old rehab clinic that shut down 3 blocks from the Walmart back in 2011. One night, I was leaving after my shift, and I parked farther from the building than usual. The lot was mostly empty, but as I got to my car, I heard someone say my name. Not yell, just say it, like they were right next to me. "Rachel!" I spun around. No one. My keys slipped out of my hand and I actually crouched down behind my car, shaking. I waited there a full 5 minutes before I stood up. Nothing. Just the blinking lights of the Walmart sign reflecting off the wet pavement. I didn't even bother looking around. I got in my car and drove straight home, heart pounding so hard it hurt. That same week I finally broke and told my mom everything. She didn't say much, just listened and nodded. Then she told me something I'll never forget. Apparently, she used to shop at that same Walmart when she was taking care of my grandma before she passed. She remembered seeing a man like the one I described years ago. Always alone, always near the pharmacy, never buying anything. She said she thought he looked lost. I couldn't stop thinking about that. How long had he been wandering that store? Had he even been alive the last time she saw him? A few days later, I left a note of my own at the desk. I didn't tell anyone. I just wrote, "I'm sorry, I don't know how to help." That night, nothing showed up. No items, no notes, nothing. For the first time in 2 weeks, the desk was clean. The next night, the same. And the next. It was like he finally stopped. Like maybe he just wanted someone to acknowledge him. Maybe he really had been looking for help. And when I admitted I couldn't give it, that was enough. It's been a year since all that happened. I still work at the same Walmart, though I switched to earlier shifts. I haven't seen him since. No more items, no more notes, no more late-night whispers in the parking lot. Sometimes I wonder if it was all in my head, some kind of mental break from the stress and monotony. But I still have that notebook. I kept everything. The dates, the descriptions, even the photo. I've shown it to a few people since, but no one ever recognizes the woman in it. Not even Robert Dean's family, who I eventually tracked down through a local Facebook page. They were kind, but tired. Like they'd spent a decade living with questions and had stopped expecting answers. I don't know what he was trying to tell me, or if I was just in the right place at the right time to notice something that was always there. Maybe some people leave this world so quietly They get stuck between the shelves, still trying to complete some unfinished task. All I know is, for those 2 weeks, something was reaching out, and I was the only one who saw it. I've worked the overnight shift at the Walmart in Dayton, Ohio for almost 2 years now. I'm 28, single, and honestly, it's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills and keeps things quiet. Most nights are uneventful. Clock in at 10 p.m., grab a pallet jack, and spend hours restocking shelves while listening to true crime podcasts through one earbud. I like the routine. The stillness of the store after hours, the humming lights, even the buzz of the refrigerators in the frozen section. It all became background noise to my solitary little world. But in mid-February of last year, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. At first, I thought I was just overtired or slipping into autopilot, but it got weirder, and it never really stopped. It started small. I worked the same few aisles every night: dry foods, canned goods, cleaning supplies. One morning, I came in and found that all the canned beans I had just stocked the night before were not only restacked, but aligned by expiration date, down to the day. Like April 14th, 2026 in the front, May 7, 2026 behind that, and so on. That's not how we do it. We go by the week, tops. I figured maybe one of the new hires was trying to impress someone, or maybe a day shift manager was bored. But I asked around and no one claimed it. Everyone laughed it off, even joked that maybe I was sleep stalking. I let it go. Just one of those things, right? Then it happened again. Not just with the beans, but the canned soups. Then the rice boxes. One night I deliberately left a few items a little crooked, just to test it. Sure enough, when I came back the next night, they were perfectly aligned. Not just neat, obsessively neat. Even the cleaning bottles were turned so every label faced the same direction, spaced out like a showroom. At this point, I was half annoyed, half curious. It felt invasive, like someone was messing with my space. But what got me was how none of the other overnight workers had even seen anyone near my aisles. Our team is small, just 4 people covering the whole store, and I was always on the grocery side alone. There was no one else scheduled for that section. At least, not officially. I brought it up to my supervisor, Karen, a woman in her late 40s who's usually more concerned with inventory counts than weird stocking habits. But even she looked puzzled when she pulled up the scheduling software. "You're the only one assigned to those aisles overnight." "Has been for weeks," she said. I asked if maybe someone from the evening shift was staying late without clocking in, but the logs didn't show anything unusual. Karen agreed to check the security footage for that section from the last few nights. And that's when things got unsettling. The footage didn't show anyone restocking after I left. No one. Just shelves slowly coming into view between frames, like something had been moved when the camera glitched or lost signal for a second. In a few clips, there were these strange shadows, quick, almost too fast to notice unless you were looking for them. One flickered across the floor near the mop closet. Another hovered near the top shelf like it came out of nowhere. Karen frowned and said maybe the cameras were malfunctioning. I wasn't so sure. That night I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I showed up for my shift like usual, but I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone darting between shelves or crouched behind a pallet. I even checked behind the backstock in a few aisles, thinking maybe one of the guys was pulling some elaborate prank. Nothing. But around 2:30 a.m., I was in aisle 17, laundry detergents, when I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping. Not loud, just deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the next aisle over, the one I had just finished. When I peeked around the corner, there was nothing there. No carts, no co-workers, just a perfectly neat row of bleach bottles all facing forward like soldiers. I stood there for a good minute, waiting for another sound. I don't know why, but my mouth went dry, and I couldn't bring myself to move. I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have. I left my assigned aisle and started checking behind every freestanding display and shelf cap in that area. That's when I noticed something odd in the far corner of the storage section, right past the double doors near the employee restrooms. A large pallet of shrink-wrapped paper towels had a gap behind it, like it had been nudged just enough to allow someone to slip in. And behind that, tucked between stacked boxes of seasonal decor and overstocked snacks, was an empty Nestlé water bottle and a crumpled wrapper from one of those peanut butter protein bars we sell near checkout. That wouldn't have been weird if it was in the break room. But it was buried back here, where customers never go and where even employees don't usually stop unless they're pulling pallets. My chest tightened. Someone had been living back here. I didn't tell anyone that night. I think I was scared they'd think I was losing it. Or worse, they'd think I was the one doing it. But I kept looking. Every break, every free moment, I checked around that area. I found more signs. A sock wedged behind a box of mop heads, a crumpled receipt from 2 months ago with a doodle on it, even a blanket balled up behind a stack of unopened cat litter bags. It was like someone had built a rotating little nest, constantly shifting to stay out of view. And yet, the cameras never showed a damn thing. Karen gave me a weird look when I asked her to pull more footage. She said, "You're starting to obsess, Mike. Get some rest." But how could I rest knowing someone might be crawling out at night while we work, just steps away from us? The worst part came the following Tuesday. I had just clocked in and was wheeling my cart toward the back when I saw something that made me freeze in my tracks. Written in dust on the back of one of the freezer doors where no customers ever go were the words, "I like your routine." The letters weren't carved in with a finger. They were too precise, almost like they were stenciled. Clean, sharp, like someone took their time doing it. That was it for me. I left my cart right there and went straight to the manager's office. I told Karen everything, from the aligned cans to the hidden wrappers to the writing on the door. She didn't laugh this time. She looked pale, like she didn't know whether to believe me or to call the cops. Karen brought in the store's security contractor the next night to check for blind spots and possible access points. I stayed late, even though I wasn't on the clock, because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. The guy did a sweep and found something none of us expected. A maintenance hatch behind the break room vending machines that led to a narrow crawl space above the ceiling tiles. It was barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but it stretched all the way across the store. Up there, tucked behind dusty ducts and support beams, they found a folded-up sleeping bag, an old prepaid cell phone with no SIM card, and several empty snack wrappers, Walmart brands mostly. Whoever was up there had been watching us. Maybe for weeks, maybe months. The police came, of course, but by then, whoever it was had vanished. No fingerprints, no ID, no footage of them entering or leaving the store. The crawl space had a second exit near the garden center, one that opened into an unused delivery chute that hadn't been locked properly in years. Karen had it sealed and welded shut the next day. They asked me if I wanted to take some time off, but I kept working. I didn't want to sit at home wondering if that person was still in there somewhere, just quieter, deeper in the walls. The night shifts haven't felt the same since. I still catch myself checking behind pallets. I still glance up at the ceiling tiles when things go quiet. What really gets under my skin, though, is the idea that this person wasn't just living in the store. They were paying attention. They watched my patterns, knew where I'd be, even mimicked the way I organized things. There's something deeply violating about that, like being studied by someone who never intended to be seen. I've started double-checking the locks at my apartment. I leave my TV on at night now, just for the noise. I tell myself it's over, that the person is long gone. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the store, pushing a cart down those cold aisles, I swear I hear that same soft tapping. Tap, tap, tap. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just the building settling or the echo of my own nerves bouncing off the tile. But if you've ever worked night shift in a place as big and quiet as a Walmart, you know how the silence can play tricks on you. Still, part of me thinks they were trying to leave me a message. Not to scare me, not to hurt me, but to let me know they were there, watching, waiting, mirroring. I used to work the evening shift at the Walmart Photo Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. Nothing glamorous, just part-time hours to help pay for community college. This happened in late September of last year. I was 23, living alone in a tiny one-bedroom apartment off Westgate City Boulevard, juggling classes in the morning and clocking in by 2 p.m. most weekdays. My days were quiet, routine. I helped people print their family vacations, baby showers, pet photos, and yes, sometimes the weirder stuff. You'd be surprised what people bring to get developed, but nothing ever felt wrong until that particular Thursday. That day started off normal. A couple came in to pick up a batch of prints, family shots at a park, nothing unusual. I remember them because their little girl was wearing a red jacket with giant daisy buttons, and she handed me a crayon drawing of a photo lady as thanks. I taped it to the back wall. By 5 p.m. the foot traffic died down like it usually does. I was just finishing up stocking new ink cartridges when I noticed something odd in the pickup bin. An envelope marked M. Davenport Ready was missing. I was sure I'd seen it earlier. I even remembered setting it aside because one of the prints inside had gotten slightly bent. I double-checked the system, assuming maybe they came and picked it up when I was in the back. Nope, no record. The pickup code hadn't been scanned, and the surveillance monitor above the counter didn't show any customer activity during the last hour. At that point, I just chalked it up to a misfile. But something about it nagged at me, so I checked the cabinet where unclaimed orders sometimes end up. That's when I noticed something even stranger. 2 more envelopes were missing. All from different days, different names, but all family photo batches. Just gone. The real punch in the gut came 3 days later, when one of the missing envelopes reappeared in the bin. Same name, same order number. But the envelope looked like it had been handled a lot. Creased edges, a smudge of something brownish on the seal. Against my better judgment, I peeked inside before notifying the system. The photos were wrong. Faces were scratched out with something sharp, maybe a knife. The dad's eyes were completely blacked out with ink. And someone had circled the toddler in 3 different shots, over and over again, in jagged red pen. I felt this wave of nausea hit me as I stood there holding those photos. There was something deeply personal about them, like I had stumbled onto something I wasn't supposed to see. I remember setting the envelope down carefully and checking the time, 6:42 p.m. I was the only one at the counter, and the store floor was dead quiet. I don't know why, but I pulled up the security footage from earlier that morning just to see if maybe someone had dropped the envelope back off. What I saw didn't help. The footage was grainy, as usual, but around 4:11 a.m., well before we opened, there was a faint flicker near the photo kiosk. A tall, thin silhouette stood there for almost 7 minutes without moving, facing the processing machines like it was just watching. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept picturing those red circles around the kid. They weren't normal shapes. They were frantic, uneven, pressed hard into the glossy surface like whoever did it was in a frenzy. I told myself it was probably some sick prank or a domestic issue gone wrong. But when I brought it up casually to the manager the next day, she brushed it off, said sometimes customers tamper with their own stuff and bring it back for reprints. Except that didn't explain how the envelope vanished and reappeared without being logged. or how it looked like it had been left outside for days, or why this was happening more than once. The next person to come back was a guy in his late 30s, tired eyes, frayed hoodie, clutching a stack of photos like they were evidence. He didn't even wait for me to speak. He slammed the prints on the counter and asked, "Is this some kind of joke?" I recognized the name, Tyler Madden, from one of the other missing orders. I didn't say anything at first, just flipped through his prints. Same thing. Faces scratched out. A woman, his wife maybe, had her smile blacked out with marker, and someone had written, "Where is she?" in tiny letters beneath one of the group shots. Tyler looked like he hadn't slept in days. He said someone had been leaving notes on their doorstep, typed letters saying things like, "We see you smile. She doesn't." That's when it stopped feeling like a prank and started feeling like something much darker. I tried to get my manager to call the police, but she told me unless a crime had actually happened, there was nothing we could do. So I took it on myself to start watching the footage more closely. Every night after closing, I reviewed the past 24 hours. And almost every night, there it was, that silhouette. No face, no clear features. Just the same still, lean figure, always lingering by the kiosk or standing near the envelope cabinet like it was waiting for something. That night I stayed a bit later than usual. We closed at 11, but I pretended I had to do inventory just so I could keep an eye on the area. I didn't tell anyone I was staying. I turned off the overhead lights near the photo center and watched from the back office with the monitor glowing in the dark. Around 12:17 a.m., the camera near the photo kiosk glitched. Just a quick flicker, maybe 2 seconds. When it came back on, the silhouette was there again. But this time it moved. Slowly. It walked toward the bin of ready orders and just stood there. No attempt to open anything. Just standing, head tilted like it was scanning the names. Then it turned toward the security camera and stood still for over a minute, like it knew I was watching. I couldn't breathe. I was frozen, just staring at that monitor with my hands shaking. I don't know what came over me, but I rushed out of the office and sprinted to the floor, shouting something like, "Hey!" without thinking it through. Of course, by the time I reached the kiosk, the place was empty. No sign of anyone. But one of the cabinets was open, just slightly. And right there on the edge of the photo printer was a single 4x6 print. I picked it up. It was a black and white shot of the store entrance, but something had been edited onto the image, crudely. A shadowy shape was drawn standing in the doorway, and under it someone had scrawled, "We like her smile." I don't remember much about how I got home that night. I barely slept. The next day, I called out of work for the first time in months. But I couldn't stop thinking about the girl with the red jacket, the little one who gave me the crayon drawing. I checked the system and found her last name, Rodriguez. Their order was one of the ones that had vanished the week before. I called the number listed on the ticket. Her mother picked up, and before I could even explain why I was calling, she asked, "Are you the one who put that thing in our mailbox?" I felt this pit in my stomach. I told her no, of course not, and explained about the photo reappearing with scratches and ink marks. She went silent. Then she said, "We've been getting pictures of our daughter, at night, from the backyard. We moved out yesterday." That was the last straw. I printed every time-stamped photo, every surveillance still with the figure, and brought it all to the store manager again. She finally agreed to call corporate. They reviewed everything, and by the following week, a rep from Bentonville flew in. They cleared the photo system and replaced every camera in our store, but they never gave us answers, just told us it was a security breach. I left the job a few days later. I still check the local forums sometimes, looking for any mention of weird prints or missing photo orders. And every now and then, I swear I see that same handwriting pop up in random places. Graffiti, sticky notes, bathroom stalls. "We like her smile." Same jagged pen, same red ink. I thought that would be the end of it. I told myself that quitting was enough, that whatever was happening, it would stop once I was out of that building. And for a while, it did. I got a new job at a bookstore downtown and tried not to think about Walmart or photo envelopes or shadowy silhouettes. But about 2 months later, I was cleaning out my closet when I found an old backpack I hadn't touched since I left the job. In the front pouch was a photo I don't remember ever printing. It wasn't in any envelope, it was just loose. A picture of me, taken from inside the photo center booth, looking out toward the register. I'm standing there with my back to the camera. Someone had written on the back in that same shaky red pen, "We like how quiet you are." I sat on the floor for almost an hour just staring at that photo. I checked the file system on my old flash drive, thinking maybe I'd somehow saved security images without realizing. Nothing. The photo wasn't digital. It had never been uploaded. I still have it, locked in a drawer, inside a folder, inside a box. I never showed it to anyone. I don't think I could explain it without sounding insane. But that was the last straw for me. I moved out of Greensboro a few months later and deleted every trace of my old schedule and store data from my phone. I didn't even tell my manager I was leaving town. I just stopped showing up. Left the past behind. I know how it sounds. I do. But something was wrong with that photo center. I don't know if it was a person or some kind of sick ritual, or maybe just an obsession that grew in the dark corners of that store. But those missing photos? They weren't accidents. They were taken, altered, delivered back like messages, each one saying the same thing in a different way. "We see you." I still don't know who they are. I don't think I want to. All I know is, if you ever pick up photos from a Walmart and one of them looks off, just a little, weird angles, red pen, strange shadows, don't ignore it. Don't assume it's a mistake. Check your house, check your yard, and whatever you do, don't smile. I used to work the closing shift at the Walmart pharmacy in Salem, Oregon. This was back in late 2022, right around the holidays. I was 29 at the time, recently divorced, living alone in a one-bedroom apartment off Lancaster Drive. Pharmacy work had always suited me. Quiet, predictable, structured. My nights ended with final inventory, locking up the controlled substances cabinet and double-checking the register logs before handing the keys to security. I liked routine. I needed routine. That's probably why I noticed it so fast when things started to feel off. It began as something small, an unfamiliar prescription form left sitting on the counter one morning when I came in to open. It was neatly filled out, requesting zolpidem, clonazepam, and hydroxyzine. No signature, no doctor's name, just the correct format and my location marked at the top. Walmart Pharmacy, Salem, OR. What? I assumed a customer had slipped it through the window crack after hours or something weird like that. I even left a note on the window the next night saying we don't accept unsigned forms. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then it happened again, and again, always after I closed, always for heavy sleep meds, always unsigned. By the third time I went to check the security footage myself, something I rarely did. There's a camera facing the counter, and another that shows the entrance to the pharmacy area. Between 10:48 p.m. and 10:52 p.m., both feeds cut to a flicker of static, like the gray-white fuzz from an old TV, just for a few seconds. When it came back, everything was untouched. No motion, no one in frame. The prescription would just be there on the counter the next morning, like it appeared out of nowhere. I asked Marcus from security to review the footage independently. He brushed it off, said the cameras sometimes glitched, but it kept happening, 5 nights in a row. Then the sixth form came in, and my stomach dropped when I read it. It still listed those same meds, but under patient name, it said, Alyssa T., 1345 Robinwood Sant. That was me. That was my full name. My real home address. Not the one on file at work, but my actual current apartment, the one I moved into after my divorce. The handwriting was precise, deliberate, almost delicate. But I had never seen it before in my life. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept rereading the form, trying to convince myself there had to be some twisted coincidence. Maybe someone found my info online. Maybe it was a prank. Except that didn't explain the static on the cameras or how the paper kept showing up inside a locked pharmacy. I didn't tell my manager right away. I was afraid they'd think I was losing it. Instead, I started locking up everything myself. I double-checked the cabinet, the windows, the drawers. I even started leaving post-it traps, tiny markers I could tell if someone opened a drawer or moved something by a hair. But nothing ever moved. Nothing changed. Just that damn prescription appearing like clockwork. I took the fifth one home. I didn't know why. I guess part of me needed proof that I wasn't imagining things. I left it on my kitchen counter and went to take a shower. When I came back out, dripping wet, towel around my shoulders, there was another form sitting beside it. Same paper, same neat handwriting. But this time, instead of medications, it just said, "Sleep well tonight. You're safe here. I'm close." My throat closed. I locked every window, every door, grabbed the biggest knife I had and sat on the floor with my back against the fridge, phone in hand. But I didn't call anyone. I couldn't even explain what was happening without sounding insane. The next day, I filed a formal report with store security and requested access to all footage from the previous 2 weeks. I wanted to prove it. Wanted someone else to see what I was seeing. But they gave me the runaround, said it had already been auto-archived, which usually meant deleted unless there was a known incident. I pressed hard. A supervisor finally agreed to pull the data manually. When I went to pick it up on a USB the next day, the drive was blank. Literally empty. Not a corrupted file. Not a failed export. Just nothing. Not even a folder. He swore up and down that he copied it himself. That's when I knew someone higher up was either covering for this or scared of it too. The final straw was the man in the aisle. I had stayed late again, past closing, trying to reorganize the back shelf in hopes of keeping my mind busy. Around 11:10 p.m., I stepped out to the main floor to grab a box of latex gloves from general inventory. That section is near the seasonal aisle, and all the overhead lights had already dimmed to night mode. As I rounded the corner, I saw a man just standing there, near the end cap of cold medicine. He wasn't looking at anything, just facing forward. Stock still, wearing a tan windbreaker and a hat pulled low over his eyes. His hands were in his pockets. I stopped walking. He didn't move. I stood there for what felt like an hour. Frozen. I couldn't see his face, but I knew he was watching me. Not just in that moment, but always. I called out a quiet, "Sir?" and tried to take a step back without making it obvious. He didn't respond. He didn't flinch. Just kept standing there like he was waiting for me to do something. My throat went dry. I turned and walked, fast, back toward the pharmacy, not running but close. I didn't look back. I don't know why I didn't call security then and there. Maybe I was afraid that if I stopped moving, he would. When I got back to the pharmacy, I locked the gate, turned off the lights, and waited until my ride came. I had texted my friend Danielle in a panic, asking if she could pick me up and pretend like we were going somewhere together. She didn't ask questions, just showed up. I didn't tell her everything right away, only that I'd seen someone who didn't belong. But when we drove off, I caught sight of someone in the rear-view mirror. Same tan windbreaker, standing alone in the parking lot, looking straight at our car as we pulled away. No phone, no cart. Just standing. I quit the job the next morning. I walked in, handed in my badge, and left without even staying for my last paycheck. The manager looked surprised, maybe even a little disappointed, but he didn't ask why. He didn't have to. A part of me still wonders if someone else had gone through something similar before me and just never said anything. I changed my number, moved apartments 2 months later, and started working at a small local clinic across town. It's not perfect, but it's quiet, normal, human. Every once in a while, though, usually on nights when I stay too late, I find myself checking drawers twice, making sure no papers were left behind, watching the windows, listening for that soft click of something being left where it shouldn't be. And sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I hear someone gently setting something down on the other side of my front door. But when I look, there's nothing, just silence. I used to work the night shift at the Walmart off Archer Road in Gainesville, Florida. This was back in late 2021, when I was trying to save up for nursing school and barely scraping by. I was 24 at the time, renting a crappy studio apartment above a vape shop, and surviving mostly on instant ramen and vending machine coffee. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. It was usually dead quiet, especially after midnight, and I kind of liked the stillness. Most of the night crew were chill, older folks or other college-age employees like me. We took turns sneaking into the break room for 15-minute naps when the manager wasn't walking the floor. At first it was just little things. A granola bar I'd left in my locker would be gone, or my phone charger would be unplugged and lying on the opposite end of the couch. I assumed maybe I was just tired and misremembering. But then other people started mentioning similar stuff. Snacks vanishing, lockers being left open, jackets moved. A guy named Martin who worked stock started locking his locker with a bike chain, which I thought was a bit extreme. But management didn't take it seriously. They told us it was probably harmless pranks between co-workers or someone forgetting where they left things. It stopped being funny when I found the Polaroid. I was in the break room alone during my 2 a.m. break, sitting at one of the corner tables, scrolling through TikTok. I accidentally kicked something under the table with my boot. When I reached down, I felt tape, like something was stuck there. I pulled it off, thinking it was old gum or trash. It was a Polaroid photo, grainy, slightly out of focus, but clearly taken in that same break room. It showed Melissa, one of our overnight stalkers, passed out on the couch with her mouth open, wearing the same hoodie she'd had on that night. I flipped it over. No note, just a faint smudge from a fingerprint in the corner. I felt sick. I looked around the break room like whoever took the picture might still be watching. There's only one door in, and it was closed. I asked Melissa about it later, careful not to freak her out, and she laughed it off, said someone must have been messing around. But that photo didn't feel like a joke. Something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't meant to be found. And that's when I started checking under the other tables. I found 3 more Polaroids. One of Martin slumped over with a sandwich in his hand. One of a janitor named Reggie, leaning against the fridge with his eyes closed. And one of me. I swear to God, me asleep, slouched on that same couch I took naps on during my breaks. I didn't tell anyone about the photo of me. I just slipped it into my pocket and kept my mouth shut for the rest of the shift. Something about seeing myself like that, completely out, unaware, gave me this crawling feeling in my skin. I kept replaying it in my head. Who took it? When? The break room door was always shut, and technically it locked automatically after hours unless you had a badge or key. Only employees could get in. That's what I kept telling myself. But the timing didn't make sense. I knew that night I was alone in there, and I would have noticed if someone came in. Or, at least I thought I would. That week, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd picture someone standing just outside my line of vision. I started keeping my phone in my hand during breaks, camera app open, pretending to scroll while secretly recording. I even started skipping naps altogether. I didn't want to be that vulnerable again. A few people noticed I was acting weird, but I brushed it off, said I was just tired. Deep down, though, I was starting to think we were being watched. Not just as a prank, but in a really calculated, creepy way. Like someone knew our routines, when we were tired, when we were alone. So I bought this cheap motion detection camera off Amazon. One of those little spy cams that records whenever it detects movement. I tucked it into an old cardboard box and left it on top of the vending machine in the break room. I angled it just right, so it could see the couch, the fridge, and the door. I didn't tell anyone. If someone really was sneaking in, I needed proof. For 3 nights, I let it run. I'd take the SD card home in the morning and go through the footage before passing out for the day. First 2 nights? Nothing. Just us coming in and out for breaks. One of the janitors microwaving fish at 3 a.m. Normal, boring stuff. But the 3rd night, that's when I saw it. Around 2:48 a.m., after I had just gone back to the floor, the camera caught the door opening. But no one came in at first. For a full 6 seconds, the door just stood open, like someone was standing just out of view. Then he stepped inside. A man, maybe? Tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled tight. I couldn't make out his face. He moved slowly, deliberately, almost like he was gliding. He stood next to the couch, staring at it. No movement. Just stood there for 9 minutes. Then he leaned forward, and the footage glitched for a few frames before he backed away and disappeared through the door again. I watched that footage over and over, convinced I had missed something. His posture never changed. He didn't look around, didn't move his hands, didn't do anything but stand there facing the couch like he was waiting for something. Or someone. The glitch in the recording freaked me out the most. It was just a quick flicker, but when I paused at the exact frame, the image jumped. He was suddenly closer to the camera, like his face had tilted up, staring right into the lens. I don't even know how that's possible with a hidden camera. That night, I didn't go to work. I told them I was sick. In reality, I was terrified. I finally showed the footage to my manager, Laura. She tried to stay composed, but I could see her shift in her chair, visibly uncomfortable. She said it was probably someone from cleaning staff who got a hold of a spare key, maybe even a former employee. But we both knew it didn't add up. No badge swipes were registered during those times. The door should have been locked, and when she had the locks checked later that day, the tech found no signs of forced entry and confirmed the electronic system hadn't been triggered. According to the building, no one had entered that room. But the footage said otherwise. They brought in a private security company to do an internal check, but they didn't find anything. No prints, no signs of tampering. The photos I found under the tables were confiscated and never brought up again. Management eventually told us they updated the system and changed some protocols, but no one was ever officially confronted or identified. I kept working there for another 3 months before I quit. I couldn't handle the unease anymore. Every time I walked near that break room, my chest would tighten. And I never sat on that couch again. Not once. The worst part? A few weeks before I left, Martin, remember the guy with the bike chain? He came up to me during our 4 a.m. break. He pulled out his phone, flipped to a photo, and said, "This was taped under my locker this morning." It was a Polaroid of me again. Me, looking directly into the camera, eyes open this time, in the exact same uniform I was wearing that night. The timestamp on the bottom corner said 2:49 a.m. But I'd been on the floor the whole time. I never stepped into the break room. To this day, I don't know who took that picture, or how. All I know is, someone was in there, and they knew exactly where we were. Every single night. I used to work the evening shift at a Walmart in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, mostly between 3 p.m. and midnight. This was back in 2019, when I was 24 and trying to save up for nursing school. I didn't mind the hours, less traffic, fewer screaming toddlers, and I liked the weird calm that settled over the store after 9. I usually worked in customer service near the front, handling returns and monitoring self-checkout. We had a tight crew at night. Everyone knew each other, and we had our own routines. That's why it stood out the first time I heard the intercom page. Attention Walmart shoppers. If anyone has seen a young boy named James, please come to the front desk. At first I didn't think anything of it. Missing kid announcements happened more than people might think. It usually turned out to be a parent forgetting their kid was in electronics or hiding behind the racks playing. But that night, nobody showed up. No frantic parent. No crying child. My co-worker Lacey, who was stocking candy near the entrance, swore she hadn't seen anyone come up to report it. When I checked with our shift manager, he said he hadn't authorized the call either. We chalked it up to someone messing around or maybe an accidental page from the back office. Weird, but not impossible. But then it happened again. A few days later, same voice, same name, same message. Young boy named James, please come to the front desk. Still, no one showed. I started asking around, and the weird part was, no one could remember hearing a name during the announcement except me. Lacey just remembered the speaker crackling. Greg from the electronics section said he thought the intercom was down. I remember standing at the service desk that night looking around, expecting some confused parent to appear. But all I got was that weird emptiness that makes fluorescent lights feel colder than they should. The announcements kept coming, once a week, sometimes twice. Always after dark, always the same wording. I started jotting them down on receipt paper to track the times. It was only ever James. No last name. The managers started brushing it off, saying it was probably some bored teenager in the back office goofing off. But I couldn't let it go. Something about the voice sounded wrong. It was flat, emotionless, like someone repeating a line they'd memorized but didn't understand. One night I stayed late and asked the guy in security, Milo, to pull footage near the phones. We checked all the time-stamped calls, but there was nothing. No one had used the intercom system at those times. Not a single person. A couple weeks later, something new happened. I was sorting through a batch of returned merchandise. Nothing unusual, just the typical mix of open toys, wrong-sized shoes, and unopened boxes people never bothered to explain. I opened one of the toy boxes, a cheap plastic fire truck, and tucked inside was a crumpled piece of notebook paper. Just one sentence, written in what looked like shaky, childlike handwriting. James was here. I stared at it for a good minute, thinking maybe a kid just left a note playing around. But then I found another one 2 days later. This time, it was inside a returned lunchbox. Same handwriting, same words. I showed the second note to Lacey and she got goosebumps. She said, half joking, that it felt like some ghost was trying to leave us breadcrumbs. I wanted to believe it was just coincidence, maybe some kid with a weird habit, but it didn't sit right. I started paying closer attention to the names on the returns, even asking some of the customers subtle questions when they brought something back. Most people didn't seem to know what I was talking about, or looked confused when I mentioned the name. James? I'd ask casually. No one ever lit up with recognition. No one said, "Yeah, that's my son," or "That's my nephew." Nothing. Eventually, I took one of the notes home. I don't even know why, it just felt important. That night, I Googled missing kids from Baton Rouge. There were a few cases, but one name stopped me cold. James T. Halley, age 6, disappeared from a Walmart parking lot in 2009. His mom said she had turned around for a second to load groceries. When she turned back, James was gone. No footage of him leaving, no witnesses. Just vanished. The store in the article? The exact one I was working at. I brought it up to Milo the next night, showed him the article, even the note. He got real quiet. Then he told me something that made my stomach drop. He'd worked there back in 2009, right when it happened. Said he remembered the mother being hysterical and the store going into lockdown. But here's the kicker. After a month of no leads, the case just faded. And that voice on the intercom? Milo swore it sounded almost identical to the one used back then, which he remembered because he had been the one on shift when the first call came through. A decade apart, same voice, same words, same store. That was when I really started losing sleep. I'd go into work every night half expecting to hear that voice again. And I did. Not every shift, but enough. Sometimes it would come on while I was stocking gum behind the registers, other times when I was cleaning the self-checkout lanes. Always the same. Attention Walmart shoppers. If anyone has seen a young boy named James, please come to the front desk. One night I followed the sound. The intercoms are linked to several phones throughout the store, so I tried to get to each one in time. But by the time I reached the closest phone, the line was dead. No one had used it. Again. Then one night, I noticed something I hadn't before. The announcements always happened between 9:12 and 9:17 p.m. That window. I don't know why I hadn't picked up on it sooner. I stayed behind after clocking out and stood near the electronics section where one of the phones was located. 9:12 came. Then 9:14. Nothing. But at exactly 9:16, the lights above aisle 14 flickered, just for a second, and the announcement came through. I swear to you, the phone in electronics never lit up. No one touched it, but the voice echoed all the same. The next morning, I called in sick and went back to the store as a customer. I walked the aisles like I was shopping, but really I was looking for something. Anything. A clue. I ended up near the toy section where I found a bin of clearance board games. One of the boxes had tape that looked newer than the others. I opened it. Tucked beneath the game pieces, folded twice, was another note. James was here. He's still here. I felt cold all over. I put the box back and left without buying a thing. I never told management about that last note. I didn't want it to get brushed off again. I quit the following week. I told them it was for school, which was only half true. I couldn't stay there, not after what I'd seen. But here's the thing. Every once in a while, I still check the Facebook page for missing kids in Louisiana. And 2 months ago, someone anonymously posted a blurry photo of the toy aisle in our Walmart. No caption, but if you zoom in real close, there's a reflection in the freezer glass just beyond the shelves. It looks like a little boy, no older than 6, just standing there by himself. And to this day, I don't know what scares me more, if James is really still in that store, or if someone else keeps calling for him, hoping he finally answers. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Also, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know who stayed with me until the end. See you next time.